Hello, hello, everyone. Hello. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. We're going to wait just a couple more minutes to see if we have a few more individuals join us, and then we'll get started. In the meantime, for those of you who have already joined us, we have a cart link available. It is in the chat box. Oops. And we also have an ASL interpreter. Her name is Lily, and you can pin her so that you can keep her on your screen throughout the entire presentation. There we go.
Look, I can't tell you that.
Yeah, there we go. For those of you joining us, please keep your cameras off so that we can highlight the speakers, the PowerPoint, as well as our ASL interpreter. Her name is, I believe, Lily, and you can pin her so that you can keep her on your screen throughout the entire presentation. And we also have a cart link in our chat box that Michaela's going to drop here again in a second for those of you who have just joined us. All right. We'll give it one more minute and then we'll start. What do you think, Michaela? Sarah, should we go ahead and get started? It's 12:01. Okay.
Teresa, right. This is Michaela. I just want to add, you might see the captioning running on the Zoom meeting. Those are auto captions. If you would like to access the cart provider, there is a secondary link. I will put that in the chat box again, and you can access live cart provided captioning in that way if you do not like the automated captions within Zoom. Teresa?
All right, thank you. All right, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you, everyone who's already joined us today. Thank you so much. This is Texas Hands and Voices' final webinar for this season. We will begin planning our next series of webinars very soon, but we're excited to see this webinar series come to a close, especially since we had to extend or move this one a little further into the month, but here we are nonetheless. So I want to introduce myself. My name is Teresa Banda, and I'm the Executive Director of Texas Hands and Voices. And I'll be presenting today with Michaela Hamaker and Sarah Milam. But just to tell you a little bit more about myself, I have been with Hands and Voices now for 2 years. In fact, I just celebrated my 2nd anniversary. And I'm a mom. I have 4 children, the youngest of whom is deaf. And as well as I'm a grandmother too. So that keeps me quite busy, but I'm very excited to be here with you all today and presenting about our wonderful programs and our chapter. And I look forward to the rest of this presentation, but I'm going to let Michaela introduce herself, and then we'll have Sarah introduce herself as well. Michaela?
Thanks. Sarah, you want to scroll to the next slide? Perfect. So this is Michaela. Thanks for the introduction, Teresa. My name is Michaela Hamaker. I am the Guide by Your Side coordinator with Texas Hands and Voices. I, like Teresa, am also a mom to 3 kids, 2 of whom are deaf. I am also a grandma, like Teresa. Truly proud of that title. And I have been with Texas Hands and Voices, Guide by Your Side, for almost 6 years, and I am thrilled to get to serve alongside families across the state of Texas. Sarah?
Hi, I'm Sarah Milam. I am the ASTra coordinator for Texas Hands and Voices. So I handle, excuse me, the educational advocacy side of Hands and Voices. I have been with Texas Hands and Voices for, let's see, if it's been 6 years for you, Michaela, then it's been 7 or 8 for me. It's been a long time. I have a 15-year-old son who it keeps me very busy. He is deaf, hard of hearing. I have another 13-year-old who is not. He is just difficult. But I love all things advocacy and the law and school related, and love to get to do what I do.
All right, well, thank you, Sarah. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Here, 1 second. So thank you, Sarah, for the slide. So Texas Hands and Voices has been a chapter since 2009, and we are one of 45, actually there are more than 45 chapters nationally and internationally now of the Hands and Voices organization. So whether we're at work locally or nationally, Hands and Voices continues to be driven by the need to improve the educational outcomes and quality of life for our children who are deaf and hard of hearing. Next slide. There we go. As I mentioned before, Texas Hands and Voices has been in Texas since 2009. We are a parent-led organization, which means that 51% or more of our board is made up of parents. But we do have key staff, all of our key staff and lead positions are parents like myself, Michaela, and Sarah have all mentioned to you just now. We all have kiddos that are deaf or hard of hearing. Our professionals are valued. I can't say enough about the professionals that we have serving on our board and who work with us day in and day out. We have so many wonderful people who have served on the Texas Hands and Voices board throughout the years. And currently we actually have many professionals who are both hearing and deaf serving on our board. And so we look forward to working with them continuously. And I'm just going to plug it here and now. We are searching for new board members. And so if any of you out there in our who are watching today are interested in learning more about that, please reach out to us afterward. The community that we serve are, of course, deaf and hard of hearing deaf adults and are a valued part of our organization as well. We have deaf and hard of hearing adults serving as board members, like I mentioned, on staff. There are our guides. We have parent guides that are deaf and hard of hearing, as well as members and volunteers. And our deaf and hard of hearing members represent oral and manual communication choices and varied levels of deafness and hearing loss. Next slide, Sarah. Okay, so what do we do? And this is a fun slide because we do a lot here in Texas, and I didn't realize how much we did until I actually came on board as ED a couple of years ago. So we have several programs which provide parent-to-parent support. We provide educational advocacy and training, networking, resource sharing. We have websites and Facebook pages. In fact, we have an Instagram page as well, and we tweet. We have a Twitter page. We have newspapers that we offer our members that are actually a national publication. We here in Texas provide an e-newsletter, and I hope that you guys are subscribing to that already. We also offer social events. Pre-pandemic, those were events were happening quite often in our state, and we're getting back to those again. In fact, we just hosted a round of back to school events, which were very successful. But looking forward to the new year and hopefully post-pandemic era, we will be offering more of those. In addition to that, we have parent and professional trainings and webinars, involvement in systems change, and legislative updates. So this is a quote by a deaf adult who is involved with our organization. The leaders of this organization provide such a great resource for the families of individuals who are deaf and hard of hearing. I have worked with families who have told me how much this organization has impacted the strength of their relationships between the families and their loved ones who are deaf and hard of hearing. Next slide. Strengthening connections. Oops, there we go. So this slide gives us an introduction to some research that was done that really shows the impact of parent involvement. So I'm going to read these to you. So research indicates that the single most important factor in predicting successful outcomes of newly identified deaf and hard of hearing babies in early intervention is the active participation of their parents. So bottom line, no matter what communication choice a parent makes for their child, what matters most is that that parent is there and is supportive and is being supported. And so as long as mom and dad show up, that child will have a successful outcome. Next slide, please. So this is a wonderful quote made by a volunteer that has worked with our organization. Texas Hands and Voices is a great organization because of the initiatives to think outside of the box to reach families all across the state of Texas. It's not easy serving a state as big as Texas, but this group is connecting with families regardless of geographic location. So much of what we do is about connecting families across the state. We've done a really wonderful job doing that this past year and a half. During COVID-19 pandemic, we have moved to doing mostly virtual events. So now we're kind of doing a bit of a hybrid on that, but we do provide websites, information. We provide Facebook pages and groups that our families can join. We have Twitter pages, like I mentioned, Instagram. We have a YouTube. Now, I don't have a link on that PowerPoint slide for you because we did have to create a new YouTube channel, but we can provide that to you post webinar today. We also have a calendar of events that you can follow on our website. We have an e-newsletter as well, and I hope all of you will subscribe to that after our webinar today if you're not already subscribed. And we also offer a membership to our Texas Hands and Voices program. So, and we have listed the link there for you to follow. And this is a very affordable membership. It's $25 per family per year and $250 for a lifetime membership. So very affordable, and you get all of what we just mentioned as well as some additional benefits. I just want to check the chat box here to see if we have any questions. Feel free to drop any questions you may have about any of the slides that we're sharing today in the chat box, and one of us will address the question for you. This is another quote by a parent. I am involved in this organization because both the International and National Hands and Voices organization and the Texas State Chapter truly embrace the mission of providing unbiased support to families who have deaf and hard of hearing children. Next slide. All right, so this is the part where Michaela gets to introduce her program. We're going to discuss two programs here in the following slides, Guide by Your Side and ASTra. And we love to say that these are the feet or the boots on the ground, because they are the ones, I say, in the trenches doing the work with the families across the state. Michaela?
This is Michaela. Thank you so much, Teresa. Okay, so I get to share a little bit about the Guide by Your Side program. Guide by Your Side is a program under the Texas Hands and Voices chapter. In our name, Guide by Your Side, you see the word guide. That acts as both a noun and a verb, right? So it's a person and it's an action. So our guides help guide you in that journey. And by you, we mean parents. So Guide by Your Side is a direct parent-to-parent support organization or program. And what we do is we are able to connect you or match you with another parent who is or has gone through the journey of raising a child who is deaf or hard of hearing. How do we do that? We can provide you with emotional support, encouragement, and guidance. That's done by both our parent guides and our deaf and hard of hearing guides. So you heard me mention that our parent guides are individuals who are parents raising deaf and hard of hearing children. But a really unique and incredible part of the Guide by Your Side program is the opportunity to be able to have and be matched with a deaf and hard of hearing guide. So a deaf and hard of hearing guide is an adult who is deaf or hard of hearing and who's able to provide that perspective on what it's like growing up and being deaf or hard of hearing and sharing that with our parents. I want you to know that our program is free of charge. There's absolutely no cost involved in signing up for our Guide by Your Side program. In addition to parent guides and deaf and hard of hearing guides, we also have Spanish-speaking guides available. So we're able to reach families where Spanish is a need. Our guides do a lot of work. Usually, as Teresa mentioned already, our work is done virtually because, as she mentioned in one of those slides, we have a huge job of supporting families across this gargantuan state of Texas. So we currently have 8 guides plus myself serving families across the state. So our support really is virtual. That means that our families are able to be connected with their guide either by text messaging, by phone calls, by FaceTime, by email, by Skype, whatever kind of connection really our parents have chosen. If you're lucky enough to live near a guide that has been assigned to you, we are able to meet you at a park or a coffee shop and have you meet some kids one-on-one. So a little bit about what our guides do. Our parent guides, as I said, provide that emotional support, encouragement, and guidance. They share information and resources with you. And it's really important to note that our support is unbiased. We support families with children from birth through the age of 21, and we meet families exactly where they are, with choices that they've made, and we respect and value those choices that they've made. And if they are at a crossroads or they're trying to make decisions for their child, we share resources, but we share them in an unbiased way. So Sarah has just switched over a little bit about what that guide by your side support looks like and what is a deaf and hard of hearing guide and how we can help you. It's really important to note that parent guides, what really is such a unique part of this program is that there's an instant connection that happens when parents meet another parent. So I know we have some parents on here. Some of you have been through the Guide by Your Side program. Just yesterday, one of our guides, Terry, sent a message to me about a mom who had been connected with her, reached out on one of our Facebook groups. Terry shared her phone number, and immediately they began texting. And within moments, the mom's reply to her was that she felt like a weight or a burden had been lifted off of her by being able to connect with another parent. And within moments of just visiting with one of our guides, fears were alleviated and hope was restored. And so that's really what we do. We help families understand that this 4-letter word, being deaf, is not a bad word. We help them find connections to their communities, connections to deaf and hard of hearing people that live in their community beyond our Guide by Your Side program. And we're able to connect them to so many resources that are provided by our funding partner, the Statewide Outreach Center at the Texas School for the Deaf, in the way of sign language classes, deaf and hard of hearing mentor programs, deaf and hard of hearing role model programs, ASL storytelling, Spanish liaisons, all sorts of supports that happen within our network, our guides are able to share. Deaf and hard of hearing guides, they do all of those things in addition to sharing about their journey growing up. So a lot of times we have parents who have these pressing questions or what they feel might be silly questions. And we always encourage parents to ask those questions, especially to your deaf and hard of hearing guide, because they aren't silly questions and they want to answer those for you. You know, they've heard them all. They're poised and ready to tell you their experiences and what they've gone through. They are an adult, so they're able to provide a little bit of how that affected them as a child, throughout their middle school years, into high school, and transitioning into life. So they're able to just kind of give you an idea of what their life looked like, and what your child may or may not experience, but just give you an idea of what that looked like for them. As I mentioned, we support families from birth through 21, which might be a newly diagnosed infant, making sure they get set up, connected to therapists, physicians, ear, nose, throat doctors, late onset diagnoses. So kids who have are late diagnosed, we're able to help yes, as some of our staff members, their kiddos were late diagnosed, and we're able to help them find those resources and get connected to communities as well. A question that we get asked a lot that I want to address here is what they want to know when their sign language classes are going to start, or when speech therapy is going to start with us. We do not provide those kinds of support. So we don't provide the sign language support. We don't provide the speech therapy, but we kind of like to refer to ourselves as the gatekeeper to resources. So we know what's available. We know what's out there. We know where to send you, and we know how to get you connected. So we can point you in all those directions and get you there, but we don't provide those types of services here ourselves. Our guides, parent guides, as well as deaf and hard of hearing, can chat with you about some of those growing up issues, some of those social issues, some of those emotional concerns, where sometimes we wonder, is this really, part of developing as a child? Or is this what we in our world call a deaf or hard of hearing thing? So sometimes, you're able to kind of talk through what kind of social emotional issues might be going on. As I mentioned, we do share resources with you. The resources are not necessarily unbiased, because whatever choice you're going to make is going to carry some sort of a professional bias, but our guides and our staff share them with you in an unbiased way, meaning we give you access to all of the choices and we allow you to make decisions. We are able to provide generalized help with your IEPs or your IFSPs and help you make sense of what some of that terminology means. Our ASTra program, and Sarah can talk a little bit more about that during her slides, we'll be able to answer more of that for you. One of the exciting things that happens through the Guide by Your Side program with some generous funds from our funding partner, as well as the chapter, is a PAUSE, P-A-U-S-E, retreat. It stands for Parents Advocating, Understanding, and Supporting Each Other. And it is geared towards moms. However, we have had many discussions where we would like to begin to involve our dads. And we've tried to do this before, but we need some of those dads who are ready to kind of take this on with us. So if there's a dad, or you are a dad, or someone who might be wanting to do that, reach out to me, because we'd love to get them connected to some of the other dads within our program. But this generally, pre-COVID, was an overnight retreat. And it was an opportunity for moms to get together, to meet one another, to network and kind of build those contacts, to have access to presenters, pampering, or a fun activity, some sort of an uptime activity. We limit those to about 2 or 3 dozen moms so that we can have an atmosphere where we are creating an opportunity for relationships to be able to be developed and friendships to move beyond the weekend, which is kind of our hope for this PAUSE retreat. If you were able to join us for our PAUSE retreat last year, you'll note that it was online, done through Painting with a Twist, and then we had some Saturday morning sessions. Our PAUSE retreats usually happen in the spring. COVID is still kind of up in the air, and we don't know what that will mean for in-person events this spring in the way of our PAUSE retreat. But rest assured, a PAUSE retreat will happen. It will take place. It might have to be a hybrid. But we will bring this to you and make sure that this happens, because this is one of the most well-attended and looked forward to events that Texas Hands and Voices hosts. There's a quick story or a quote from a mom who has a deaf-blind child who was connected with Guide by Your Side 2 weeks post her child's new diagnosis, and she was referred to us through our partners at Texas School for the Deaf Statewide Outreach Center to attend our pause retreat. And this mom, as you can imagine, was very emotional and was very hesitant in putting herself out there, and even just being in the presence of other people because her emotions were still so raw. What she said at the end of Saturday afternoon really kind of summed up why we do these things. And that was, she didn't expect to make the connections that she did. She didn't expect to be welcomed with open arms, not just with open arms, but waiting with hugs and love. But beyond those hugs and that love, it wasn't just a frou-frou event. It was an event that truly left her knowing where to look for the resources, how to connect beyond here, and making connections that can last beyond Friday and Saturday, as she so importantly and clearly was going to need in her son's life beyond pause retreat. And so that's why we do these things. It builds connections. It makes people feel rejuvenated, ready to take on that next step, that next journey, builds friendships, makes connections in the community, as well as with our professionals. And so we will have a pause event this spring. So look for those newsletters, look for our calendar, look on our social media. I know we'll be releasing some of that information in the next month or so, because we want to open up that opportunity for anybody to give these as holiday gifts, should that be something you are interested in. Sarah? Oh, wait, 1 second. I just want to back up before we get to ASTra. I want to point out that when you requesting the services of the Guide by Your Side program is very easy, and it's as easy as submitting your form online. Looks like our form got left out, but I'll put it in the chat box when Sarah presents. You just follow our link to the website, and at the bottom of the page, there will be a link that says request Guide by Your Side services. It is a quick one-page link that just asks some basic questions about your child's information, how you want to be contacted, and what services you would like for us. And within several days, you are connected with your guides, and they will be able to reach out to you and begin providing that support. If you have any questions, my contact information is here. I'd love to chat with you, so feel free to reach out anytime. Over to Sarah.
Okay, didn't want to unmute. Well, before we go completely to me, I want to give just a second. Are there any questions anybody has for Michaela specifically about Guide by Your Side? I want to make sure we have an opportunity to answer those. All right, I'm not seeing anything right now. So my name is Sarah, and I'm the ASTra program coordinator, as I mentioned before, and I do the educational side of things. So if it comes to an IEP, an IFSP, a 504, an evaluation, or any other acronym that the school is telling you that you're not sure what it means, that's where ASTra comes in. So our advocates are specifically trained in educational advocacy specific to deaf and hard of hearing issues, because oftentimes the laws and the policies apply differently to our deaf and hard of hearing kids. We provide resources, support, help in preparing for IEP meetings, and even can attend IEP meetings, especially virtually in this COVID world, if needed by a family. So that can be one-on-one support. A lot of times our advocates will spend their time just helping prepare for a meeting, reviewing documents, coming up with questions, helping families understand what questions to ask, what their rights are within the meeting. And we often find that when they're well prepared, they really don't need us there in the meeting. They just needed some help getting ready. The other thing we provide is group training. So it's very important to know that this is for parents and professionals. Typically, our trainings are about 50% parents, 50% professionals, and we love it. This training covers all of the basics of educational advocacy for deaf and hard of hearing kids. We are now a TEA recognized CPE provider for continuing education. So we love, love, love getting with professionals to work on this training. I completely recognize that as parents and professionals, oftentimes we're kind of floated through this educational system and no one really stops to explain everything that's happening and all of the resources that are available. And that's what we're here for. You can always reach out to me directly. My email is there in the slide. You'll also find ways to contact me on our Texas Hands and Voices ASTra page. And we'd love to answer your questions. Professionals, it's important that you know that we are not your typical, stereotypical, I should say, advocates. Our job is not to get you or to cause trouble or be unreasonable. Our job is to help parents and professionals together get on the same page so that we can provide the best outcomes for our kiddos. And while not every situation is simple and rosy, we do believe that we can be great advocates without some of the animosity and hard times that can come with what you think of with a stereotypical advocate. So we do have 3 different levels of training you'll see. Our level 1 training is what we offer to everyone. That's our basic training. Anybody who's looking to just have more skills on the basics of IEP 504 federal law. We do touch a little bit on state law, but it is not the primary focus. This is typically offered once or twice a year in a group setting. We do offer this virtually. It was offered in person pre-COVID. What it's going to look like in this next year, I'm just still not 100% sure. Our level 2 training is for folks who want to be an advocate recognized by Hands and Voices. So taking the level 2 training involves an application process, and approval by our board to be a representative of the Hands and Voices chapter as an advocate. And then level 3 is our Training the Trainer. And this is for parents, deaf and hard of hearing adults or professional who would actually like to deliver these trainings. We do currently have 3 trainers within the state of Texas, and we are always happy to come meet you where you are at, whether that be visiting with a parent group, a professional group, anything we can do to help, we are absolutely here for. I do want to make sure to point out a really great resource that we have from National Hands and Voices, and this is our Educational Advocacy Guidebook. This is all the basics of federal IEP and 504 law in one book with the lens of deaf and hard of hearing applied to it. So this is not your typical advocacy book. I highly recommend anybody who has or works with a deaf or hard of hearing child to purchase this book. It's an excellent resource. I will get that link in the chat box. But this is always a great first step. You'll also find on our website, txhv.org/ASTra, a link to our resource bank. It'll ask you to just enter your email address, and there you'll find all of the great resources that we have collected over the years to help with educational advocacy. The website will also bring you to a place where you can request an advocate. And this is someone that'll work one-on-one with you and your family to prepare for your next meeting, review your documents, or whatever it is that you may need. However, I want to encourage you, reach out to us early, and we'd rather you reach out to us often than not at all. Don't wait until things have gotten bad to involve us. We'd love to help you get things right from the start, help you understand as a parent what the educational process looks like, where the school is coming from, and how you can best work with them to meet your child's needs. And professionals, we love, love, love to hear from you. I am always happy to help you dig up a resource, point you in the right direction, find something that may help a family. Please don't ever hesitate to reach out for those kinds of needs. So all the information on how to reach us is at the website, as well as the form to request an advocate. The advocacy form, the request for advocacy form is a little longer than some of your typical request for information forms, because we're trying to gather the information we need to really prepare to help you. Professionals, if you visit that request for advocacy form, you can also refer a family. It'll ask if you're a parent or professional on the form. Any questions specifically about ASTra? All right. Then I think I will turn this back over to Teresa. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Oops. Teresa, I'm sorry. Can I back up 1 second?
Mm-hmm.
Just want to point out that one of our professionals that works with us, Jennifer Prigge, mentioned how much she loves the ASTra book and the training, and that it's so helpful for families and professionals. And that is coming from a professional in the field.
Thank you, Michaela. And something else I'd like to just make a note of is that I often, as the executive director, will see where our ASTra coordinator and our Guide by Your Side coordinator and the contract, the parent guides and the advocates will work together with the family. So while we are, separate projects within the chapter, they do work together to ensure that the families are fully supported. So if our family comes through the front door and is using an ASTra advocate, but we also see that they need maybe some parent support, they will be referred over to our other programs. So we do work very closely together to ensure that the family receives all of these supports and resources necessary to make that child have a very successful outcome. Okay, so on to Tuesday topic. So this is really a fun topic for me. Every month it takes a lot of work to get this one off the ground, but it's something that is near and dear to all our hearts, because this is one way that we're able to share information with you monthly. You've probably, those of you who have been or watched a Tuesday topic event over the last few months may have noticed that we've gone live on Facebook. This is something new that we're trying to garner some more attention or to reach more folks, because we realize that, it gets a little old sometimes watching, pre-recorded videos or just watching or reading posts that are happening on our Tuesday topics the way we used to do them. So again, we invite you to join us on Tuesday topics. Starting in November, we are going to have those on the first Tuesday of the month at noon. This will be a lunch hour, Central Standard Time. We hope that this will allow more parents and professionals to join us during their lunch hours when we are providing either a live Facebook or what may sometimes happen is a pre-recorded event possibly, but always accessible, fully accessible to all of our friends, families, and professionals who may want to watch along. So some of the topics that we may cover will be something like communication with extended family or safety, or maybe covering the holidays and how families can help their child interact with their family members, literacy, all sorts of topics. But if there's something that you want us to talk to you about or show, perhaps create an event around, let us know. We're always looking for new ideas to keep our family and our community interested, invested in our program. Let's see here. Next slide, Sarah. There we go. Okay, thank you. As I mentioned earlier, this is the last webinar in our webinar series for this current year. We are going to be planning our fiscal year 21-22 webinar series. We don't know what that's going to look like yet, but we invite you again to send in any topic ideas that we can begin developing. Most likely we'll release information about our new webinar series towards, I'd say maybe the end of October. We'll have a flyer and registration links available on our website. So we'll be sharing more information about that on our Facebook page, as well as our e-newsletter and website. Next slide. Connections matter. Oh, this is so important. Although we don't have any events planned right now, we are in the midst of planning some fall events, possibly some holiday events. We're not exactly sure what that's going to look like again, given the problems we're having with COVID and the higher. So we're looking at possibly doing some webinars again, or virtual events, and or some hybrid events. It's all still kind of being talked about, but rest assured we will have information available to you as soon as possible. Again, we encourage you to sign up for our e-newsletter, to follow the website and Facebook page. We post often about our events on all three of those. So we encourage you to do that, and hopefully we'll have more information on events soon. Also, the calendar is mentioned as well on this slide, and that again is on our website, and you can visit that anytime. Any events that we are hosting will be posted to that calendar. Now, if you know of any events that are in the community that may be happening that could be of interest to our families and community, you can also add those to our calendar. But there's a link you can click on where you can add the information, and if it's something that we find is in the best interest or something that our families would enjoy, then we will add it to our calendar. Next slide. In the end, it's not just about the choices we made for our children, but how we fostered their ability to make the right choices for themselves and then honored their choices. Seaver, Hands and Voices. Again, this particular quote just reminds me of something that I just recently experienced with my child, because we didn't find Hands and Voices until we were far along in our journey. She's 15 now, and it's been 2 years now that I've been with Hands and Voices, but as a parent, I didn't actually find Hands and Voices until she was a much older child. But this quote speaks volumes to me, because I recently experienced something with my daughter that she went to an IEP meeting, and I did not have to advocate for my child at all. And, you know, Sarah is nodding her head there, because that's really what we want, right? We want our children to become their own advocates. And I thought to myself, when I read this quote earlier today, I thought that just really reminded me of sitting at that ARD meeting last year, and my daughter's trying to figure out what needs to, you know, what we need to have happen for her sophomore year to be successful. And I said not one word except introduced myself at the beginning and said thank you at the end, because she did all the talking. And when I experienced that, I thought to myself, my job is done, in a sense, you know, as a parent, because everything that we worked towards over the years as a parent, making sure that she knew and what she needed to know and was equipped with the language that she needed to know, and it worked. So, you know, as parents, these are those moments that we're looking for, that we're fighting for. So I encourage you all to stay just stay the course and continue supporting your child the best way possible, which is, you know, what works for your child, whatever feels good to you. Just follow your gut and do what you feel is right for your baby. Next slide. So, oops, you might have to hit it a couple more times. There we go. Thank you so much. So we are at the end of our webinar today, our presentation. And as you can see, we have some slides up, some images up of some of the families that we have served over the years. I had to, of course, give my daughter, put my daughter in one of those. She is the one on the upper left hand with a child that we saw recently at an event. And some of the kiddos in this family, in these photos, are families, Texas Hands and Voices families that are contractors currently with us. So we're excited to share their faces, their happy, smiling faces with you. If anyone has any questions, now's the time. You can drop those in the box and myself, Michaela, or Sarah will address those. We have a few minutes left, about 15 minutes left in the hour. Let's see here, I think there's something in there.
That was me. I was just saying, you know, I think you said something really important, you know, about the Texas Hands and Voices family. It really is a family and not just staff or contractors. You know, one of the best parts about being involved with Texas Hands and Voices for me has been that all of the friends that have become like family, the people I call when my kid's having a problem. So that's just such a huge deal. It really is family. And we want everyone to be a part of our family.
It looks like someone's asking about a link. There we go. Thank you, Sarah. Michaela, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, this is Michaela. I just want to add one more thing about some of these events. Since we have this picture up and you see all of these fun things going on, our Guide by Your Side team hosts events each quarter in cities all across the state, including but not limited to El Paso, Waco, Austin, San Antonio, Houston, the Valley, Dallas, Fort Worth. I think those are some of the main places our events take place. We are in the planning stages of our fall events. So as Teresa mentioned, take a look at that calendar. We update our social media with those events, and it also gets shared in our newsletter. So to make sure you don't miss any of that, make sure you've subscribed and you are a part of that. So I see Tori has a question. Are there separate Facebook pages for city groups? So Tori, that's a great question. There are no separate Facebook pages, but we do have a Facebook group called Texas Hands and Voices Family and Friends. And that is a closed group versus our Spanish and regular Facebook Texas Hands and Voices business page. There are questions that are asked of you to make sure that you are a parent or a professional with a child who's deaf or hard of hearing, that you will respect our philosophy. And so we kind of monitor who gets accepted into that group. And lots of parents pose the question or share events that are happening in their area. And they specifically say, hey, I'd like to connect with someone from Longview. Is there anybody here? And I think we have over 1,000 people in that group, which is Texas specific for Texas Hands and Voices families. And they're able to, within a day or two, let you know that they live near you, that they'd like to join you, that, you know, hey, let's start our own little parent group in the area and get together. So that is the group that I would recommend. Let me get the address for that. Pop it in the, you found it. Perfect. I recommend you joining that group because that one will be a lot more personal and be able to really get you connected to other families right there in your area.
And this, Lisa, I just wanted to add, when we do have events, we will try to create an event in our Facebook on our Facebook page so that it'll show up, you know, specifically for that, you know, list that city that it may be held in. On our e-newsletters as well as the website, we'll list them individually by city when we can. And of course, we're always sharing, oversharing on our social media so that families are aware. But probably the best place to look for information is going to be our Facebook page as well as the Friends and Families group page, because anything that gets shared on our business page will eventually or ultimately be shared on the group page as well. Well, that is all that we have, unless anyone else has any additional questions. No? Okay, well then I think we'll just wrap this up. Again, I want to thank everyone for being here with us today. Sarah, Michaela, thank you for your time. I'd especially like to thank our ASL interpreter, Lily, and I believe Mark was the other individual, and our card provider, and I wrote down her name here, Melissa, for joining us today. We appreciate all of your time and expertise. And we'd also like to extend a special thanks to our funding partners, Statewide Outreach Center at Texas School for the Deaf, for their support, their continued support of our programming. Without their funding, some of these webinars and events would not be possible. Would anyone else like to close or no? All right then. Well, thank you so much, everyone. We'll see you hopefully very soon at our next webinar. Stay tuned for more information. Be sure to follow all of those social media links and pages and things that we shared with you today, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.